Pollution or nature.
Good day everyone, I'm Puteri Lilyann Chong binti Muhammad Fuad Chong, and it will be delightful to call me Lilyann. I'm a PPI SMP 2025/2030 student of TESL 2 from Institut Pendidikan Guru, Campus Pendidikan Teknik. After we all watched the montage at the opening of the video, it is undeniable that our environment meant a lot to us. Currently, 1 million species of plants and animals, nearly 1 out of every 8, are threatened with extinction. This isn't a future problem, this is happening now. This isn't just about losing nature, but this is about erasing the very foundation of our food, our medicine, and the air we breathe. As we all were aware about, the environment is not a separate entity we visit on vacation. It is our life support system. Its importance is not debatable. It is the source of all economic activity, all health, and all human survival. And this brings us to the core question of my presentation. Should we let this continue? Should we let the convenience of today override the survival of tomorrow? Should we allow pollution to disproportionately kill the poor and the marginalized? The answer, ethically, morally, and practically, is a resounding no. The continuation of business as usual is not merely irresponsible. It is a catastrophic failure of will and ethics. My goal today is not just to talk about the crisis, but to lay out the urgency of the ethical choices we must make right now to stop this death from overwhelming our future. Let's begin with the communication matters on environmental issues. First and foremost, environmental ethics regarding communication matters related to social issues concerns the ethical obligations in conveying information about environmental problems. The evaluation of these issues centers on how communication practices across media, government, corporations, and civil society can either promote or undermine environmental and social justice. This also concerns their disproportionate social impacts, particularly on vulnerable and marginalized populations. The first point we are going to talk about is core ethical issues. First of all, transparency and accuracy, where the violation is ethical breach of greenwashing. This is due to where corporations misleadingly present their products or policies as environmentally friendly. On the other hand, they are just manipulating the public perception and obscure genuine issues. The ethical imperative is to communicate environmental data and risk truthfully and accurately. But the social impact at these issues where it misleads communication, prevents informed public participation. Government allows harmful practices to continue, often in areas populated by socially vulnerable groups. On to the second, fairness and equity, where it fails to amplify the voices and concerns of this marginalized community. It downplays the social cost of environmental policies. It is an ethical lapse because communication must address the fact that environmental degradation often disproportionately affects poorer and minority communities. This silence reinforces existing power imbalance. It leads to policies that neglect the specific needs, and higher risks will be faced by the poor in areas like housing, health, and clean water access. Moving on to the third and the last core ethical issues, public participation and inclusivity, where the corporation use opaque language, technical jargon, or selective disclosure. It limits public understanding and involvement undermines democratic processes. Ethical communication requires open, participatory dialogues that allows all stakeholders, especially affected communities, to contribute to environmental decision-making. But the lack of inclusive communication results in top-down, non-contextual solutions, fail to gain social acceptance or effectively solve local nor socio-environmental problems. The next point, we will be talking about examples of communication issues. First and foremost, greenwashing. As an example, a fossil fuel company launches a massive advertising campaign highlighting its small future investments in carbon capture technology while aggressively expanding its core, which is polluting operations. This leads to misinformation and delayed action because consumers and policymakers are misled into believing the company is part of the solution, reducing pressure for real systemic change. It places the burden on individual green consumption rather than corporate responsibility. The second example, environmental racism, also known as exclusionary risk communication. A municipal agency publishes a technical, English-only report on a toxic waste site and hosts the only public meeting during working hours in a distant location. The affected low-income, non-English-speaking community is not directly engaged. They are excluded. This is where environmental injustice happens, because the affected community is denied meaningful involvement in the decision-making process. The communication method effectively silenced their concerns, leading to the continued disproportionate exposure to health hazards. Example 3. Fear-based messaging, where media outlets constantly use alarming, catastrophic imagery and language without offering clear, actionable solutions for climate change. This leads to public paralysis and disengagement because the overwhelming nature of the crisis induces anxiety, apathy, and helplessness, also known as doomism, causing individuals and groups to disengage from the issue rather than mobilize for necessary social and political action. This is where role of communication vital for us. It raises awareness and literacy. Ethical communication through education and media demystifies complex scientific issues like climate change and translate them into understandable narratives that resonate with daily life. This fosters environmental literacy and a sense of shared responsibility. On to the next one, mobilizing action, where strategic communication, particularly through digital and social media, can move beyond awareness to encourage pro-environmental behavior such as recycling, reducing consumption, carpooling, taking public transportation. It mobilized collective action such as political advocacy or community organizing. And the last one, influencing policy and governance, where the transparent and effective communication is essential for good governance. It ensures that environmental impact assessments, policy rationales, and risks are clearly presented to the public. It facilitates the two-way dialogue necessary for developing socially just and effective environmental policies. Further implications: erosion of trust, because it destroys public trust in institutions, science, and media. It also causes reinforcement of injustice, because it prevents marginalized and low-income groups from exercising their right. It perpetuates environmental racism and classism. The next one, misallocation of responsibility. It distracts the need for large-scale systemic and political change, a shifting of moral and financial burden to individuals instead of corporates. And the last one, political polarization. It deepens political divides, hinders the formation of the broad social consensus necessary for climate action. Solutions is needed. The first one, we need to have radical transparency and accountability. Through this action, we need to mandate and enforce clear, standardized, and independently verified reporting on corporate environmental impact, such as supply chain emissions. We need to combat greenwashing with clear legal standards and penalties for misleading claims. In this circumstance, truthfulness and responsibility can be applied. On the second one, community-led and culturally sensitive communication, where we employ participatory methods such as community radio, local town halls, and hiring local liaisons, and provide multilingual, low literacy materials. We can work with affected communities to co-design messages and decision-making processes. We need to focus on empowerment and solutions. Shift the narrative from doom and gloom to action, opportunity, and local benefits, such as new green jobs and improved local equality. It emphasizes collective efficacy, where the belief that people working together can solve the problem. And for the last solution, it is bridge science and public, where government trains scientists and experts in plain language communication and storytelling. They should use narratives like visual media and local case studies to connect abstract science to tangible local issues, so it is more understandable. In this way, accessibility and public understanding can be applied. Now let us move on to the environmental methods, where it requires a call to action. Environmental ethics regarding environmental matters related to social issues is centered on the ethical framework of environmental justice. The core ethical conflict arises because those who contribute the least to environmental damage often suffer the most severe consequences. This perspective recognizes that environmental problems are inextricably linked to social structures and that the burdens of degradation are distributed unjustly, typically falling disproportionately on marginalized, low-income, and minority communities. The first point that we are going to talk about was key and social dimensions. First of all, pollution and environmental racism. The first and foremost environmental matter is air and water pollution from industrial facilities, toxic waste sites, and traffic. Environmental injustice happens because polluting industries and waste facilities are statistically and historically more often sited near communities of color, indigenous peoples, and low-income populations. This is often due to a lack of political power, discriminatory zoning laws, and cheaper land. For the ethical evaluation, this violates the principle of distributive justice, as environmental burdens are not fairly shared. The issue is not just accidental exposure, but a systemic effort to ensure fair treatment and meaningful involvement in environmental decision-making for all people. The example of the consequences that will be faced by the minority communities is high rates of asthma, cancer, and other chronic health issues in communities adjacent to petrochemical plants or incinerators. 1. Climate change and vulnerability. Where rising global temperatures, extreme weather events like floods, droughts, and heat waves, and sea level rise driven by greenhouse gas emissions. There is climate inequality and displacement because the poor, especially those in the global south, small island developing states, and coastal regions, are the most vulnerable to climate impacts despite contributing minimally to the crisis. Impacts lead to food and water insecurity, loss of livelihoods such as fishing and agriculture, and forced migration, which is climate refuge. This raises profound questions of intergenerational and global justice. Affluent societies have an ethical duty to both drastically reduce emissions and provide climate adaptation finance to vulnerable nations based on the polluter pays principle and historical responsibility. And the last one, resource depletion and social conflict, where there is deforestation, soil degradation, and especially water scarcity from over-extraction or pollution. For the social issue, there is ecological distribution conflicts and gender inequality, because competition over dwindling resources can spark local and cross-border conflicts. Socially, the burden of resource scarcity, such as fetching clean water or securing firewood, disproportionately falls on women and children in developing nations, limiting their educational and economic opportunities. The consumption patterns in developed nations often lead to resource extraction in the developing world, such as for minerals, timber, or palm oil. This exploitation violates the ethical requirement to ensure sustainable and equitable access to basic necessities and respect for the resource rights of local, often indigenous communities. The next point that we will be talking about is foundational ethical obligation. The first one, human right, where there is clean air, safe water, and a stable climate are prerequisites for human dignity and not privilege. Environmental ethics requires shifting from a purely anthropocentric view to a socio-ecological view. This perspective also acknowledges procedural justice, where the affected communities must have meaningful involvement in environmental decision-making processes, which ensures their knowledge and concerns shape policy. For the last one, corrective justice, where there is an obligation to remediate past environmental harms such as clean up toxic sites, mining sites in marginalized communities, and compensate those who have suffered disproportionately, mentally or physically. Ultimately, evaluating these issues means confirming that an ethical response to environmental crisis cannot separate ecological sustainability from social equity. It also brings to ethical implications. For the first one, violation of distributive justice, where the unequal share of environmental harms and benefits based on race or class is unfair and entrenches existing social inequalities. The next one, health and mortality, where disproportionate exposure to pollution leads to higher rates of chronic illnesses, lower life expectancy, and higher stress levels in marginalized populations. And cycle of vulnerability. Environmental degradation often destroys the primary assets of the poor, reducing their ability to recover from shocks and trapping them in a self-perpetuating cycle of poverty and risk. For the last one, political disempowerment, where environmental injustice is often maintained because the affected communities lack the political power and representation to influence zoning laws, permitting, and regulatory enforcement. For the solutions, we need to have policy and regulatory reform, where there is mandate review. It requires all new public projects to conduct a rigorous social and health equity impact assessment and prioritize non-polluting alternatives in overburdened communities. And for the next one, we need to implement just transition frameworks, where we develop policies to support workers and communities economically dependent on polluting industries such as coal, oil, and mining by providing funding for retraining, clean energy infrastructure, and community development to ensure the shift to a green economy doesn't create new social hardships. We also need to enforce the polluter pays principle, where we strengthen environmental regulations, making polluting entities by the government or corporations financially and legally accountable for the social and ecological costs of their actions, including mandatory cleanup and compensation. We also need empowerment and procedural justice, where we invest in community-led monitoring, which is by funding local groups to conduct independent environmental monitoring on their air, water, or sound quality, collect localized health data, and provide data transparency to counteract official opacity. We also need to prioritize green space equity, which by implementing urban planning policies that mandate the equitable distribution of parks, public transit, and tree canopy investment, specifically targeting historically underserved neighborhoods to reduce heat and improve public health. Global and financial equity. We need to fulfill climate finance commitment with the wealthier high-emitting nations must meet and exceed their financial pledges to help vulnerable developing nations adapt to climate change and develop clean energy infrastructure. The last one, establish loss and damage funds, where operationalize funds to provide financial assistance to countries and communities already experiencing devastating, unavoidable losses and damages from climate change. In this circumstance, just so that we can implement the solutions that we have been talking about in communication matters and environmental matters, there is few effective communication modes that needs to be used just so that action could be louder than words. For the first one, we need to prioritize community-centric and interpersonal modes, which the first one, where we utilize workshops, town halls, and focus groups where community members are active co-creators of the message and solution. This mode is vital for building the trust eroded by historical injustice. This truly addresses the lack of procedural justice. The second one, which is by local messengers and channels. We need to employ trusted community leaders, local media, personalities, elders, and religious figures as spokespeople. We can use community radio, local language newspapers, and neighborhood centers. This overcomes institutional distrust and language barriers. And for the last one, we can leverage narratives, parables, and cultural symbols that resonate with the community's values and views on nature, also known as cultural environmentalism. The traditional or cultural storytelling can make the message deeply relatable and memorable. For the second one, we need to localize and action-oriented digital modes. For multilingual and visual content, all material comprising websites, infographics, short videos must be available in local and indigenous languages. We can use compelling visuals, simple, and infographics that convey complex information instantly by minimizing technical jargon. And for the second one, social media tailoring. We can use the specific social media platforms for Gen Z, Instagram for Gen X and Millennials, Facebook for Gen Alpha, Roblox, popular within the target cultural group, Campaigns should focus on collective action and local success stories to foster hope and social norms, rather than just fear or global catastrophe. And for the last one, geospatially relevant media, which is by using maps, augmented reality, known as AR, or local imagery to show immediate local impacts, such as a toxic site, a projected flood zone, and highlight the local benefits of action, such as cleaner park, healthier children, and better future. Other than the communication modes, there is also ethical campaigns that carrying awareness to action. For the first one, focus on justice, not just saving nature. Campaigns must explicitly connect pollution, climate change, or resource depletion to human rights, health, and equity. We need to frame the issue as social justice. The message should be environmental protection is a matter of fairness and health access for our children. For the second one, we can empower message, shift from doom and gloom to emphasizing collective efficacy, the community's ability to drive change. Campaigns must provide clear, actionable steps for policy advocacy. For an example, how to contact a local representative if there is any pollution happens, or how to monitor water quality by looking at the color, and we need to counter greenwashing, which ethical campaigns must use transparent, evidence-based communication to expose corporate misinformation. The communication mode here is often advocacy journalism and citizen data reporting, where the community provides the proof of harms. We need to mandate procedural justice in campaign decision, obtaining and respecting the community's decision on the issue, because communication is a tool for consultation and informed decision making, not persuasion. We need to be transparent about the funding sources and the ultimate goal of the campaign. For an example, legislative change, cleanup, land rights, especially when partnering with external NGOs or governments. And for the last one, collaborative action, where we involve communities in collecting local environmental data that builds literacy, trust, and ownership over the problem, and the solution directly addressing data exclusion. Campaigns should transition from awareness events to joint physical acts of change, such as example, co-writing a policy proposal, planting trees in polluted areas, participating in a legislative hearing. In this way, examine communication and environmental issues in multicultural contexts can be solved.